Welcome to the RaceGuru Thunder Hour, brought to you by the Elite Plus Network and FantasyGuru.com. As always, the man, the myth, the legend is joining us in front of the curtain. That would be Sean Engel, who you can find on X at SeanE247. Remember, that's SEAN. And back with us again, getting a little break from his UFL work and dominance over there, is Mark Hogan. You can find on X at DFS_Marlin. Mark, it's great to have you back. Sean and I have been missing you. I can't lie, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. And even though I haven't been able to join the pod over the last couple of weeks, it's definitely been keeping up with NASCAR and had a nice win this past weekend. So, you guys are doing some great work and get ready to get after it with a different track than what we're used to over the last several years.
Very different.
I was saying, we got a curveball as I'm sitting here making notes for the article coming out tomorrow, and I'm realizing there's not a lot of info to be sharing with everybody. Like, I can go in my way back machine, but I don't know. We got a guy, I'll tease it. We got a guy that has driven here before that's in the race this weekend, but it's been a while, and the name's probably going to shock some people. But no, this is a big curveball this weekend. But before we get into that, I did want to say congratulations, Mark. I mean, you did awesome in the Truck Series. Your Xfinity stuff has been great. So thank you very much for doing that. Sean and I know appreciate that. We were talking off air. I mean, I'm not playing right. I don't have the winning Sean or Mark does, but I did get second in a cup tournament this weekend. So, hey, I'm not full of it. I do have some info that's worthwhile, right? The truck stuff was all right. I did okay there. The cheat sheet was kind of on point, but I didn't have the right combo. Sean, you've been holding your own. I know with the bets, we've been struggling a little bit lately, but you were all over the winner. So hat tip. And that was a good call out because at, plus 285, Larson was worth betting, unlike for Xfinity and trucks where we were having to eat the juice on it, with negative numbers. And I really don't, we've seen too many perfect examples. The truck race, Chandler Smith pulled it off. Hey, I was all over that. I did tell you Chandler Smith and Lane Riggs, those were my guys for the win. Well, we got that right. So Larson didn't pull it off there, but yet, drinking the juice on Saturday for Xfinity, his goal was to embarrass him. I don't know if I'd say he embarrassed him, but domination.
Pure domination. That is what the name of the game was for Larson right there. He said so himself, even in interviews after the race. He wanted to just dominate and embarrass them. We got the old blunt Larson coming back right there.
I don't mind.
People did he lap?
That was his goal.
I mean, he lapped, I would say, over half the field in stage one, right?
His goal. He legitimately admitted to Denny. His goal was because Denny, they were kind of egging him on. Denny admitted this on his podcast. Kyle's goal was to lap the field. And what happened is because of the way the stages broke up, he said, we just couldn't do it with the stages. He goes, I tried. He goes, but there was just no way we were going to be able to do it in the shorter stage lengths. But that was his legitimate goal, Mark. He wanted to lap the field. It's been a while since we've seen that happen, like a long time. But I can't lie. I would have been impressed. I'm a Kyle Larson guy. I've been on the Kyle Larson bandwagon before. I mean, my wife, I remember when he signed with Hendrick, she goes, are you going to get off the bandwagon yet? Not now. He finally got good equipment. I think the guy's a shoe. And I know he wears people out and he's checkers or wreckers. But look, the guys that have been known to do that, been really good drivers. I mean, Kyle Busch had that reputation. Dale Earnhardt had that reputation. So I'm fine with it. We go to races to watch someone win. So if a driver wants to give it its all and doesn't care if he comes back with a wrecked car and a steering wheel, I appreciate it.
Yeah, truly. You got to respect Larson's talent, all things considered. I mean, I remember last week we were talking about him doing the triple header before this weekend, and we were like, oh no, he's not going to be able to do it here. And although he didn't do it, he got even closer, I'd argue, than he did at Homestead, which was a more favorite track for him.
Agreed. And he loves both, right? And I understand why. And a lot of short track guys, it got brought up in Discord. Well, aren't you worried about Connor Zilic because he's never raced there before? And while the finish wasn't what I was expecting, he got damaged. He was running in the top 10 most of the day, even top 5 for a good section of it. Crew chief admitted they didn't have a top 3 car. Well, that means to me they probably had a top 10 car, which is about where he was running. Tracks like Bristol, and this is why I kind of laugh at Joey. Joey, yeah, he's been better in the fall race. I don't know what it is with the spring race, but he does not take to Bristol very well. The Busch brothers have. Denny Hamlin has. Yeah. I think it's his driving style, personally. I could be wrong, Sean. I think it's his driving style.
The next-gen car, he has been absolutely cursed at this track because he's not produced one single good finish at Bristol in the next-gen car. So I'm willing to incline and believe that he is absolutely cursed at this very particular track right now.
Bristol is all about getting those RPMs up and rolling the corner. And I'm not shocked that someone like Larson, who likes to run the high side, or even Reddick, they do well here. And you know what? John Nemechek took to it really well, too. You called that, Sean. And John Nemechek, look, it's both him and Ty Gibbs are finally starting to show a little bit. We've been waiting for these 2 young drivers to show us a little. And granted, the soccer club hasn't had speed, but John Hunter Nemechek looked awfully good in that car this weekend. I was hoping to see a little bit more from Eric Jones, thinking maybe the soccer club did take a step forward. But both Gibbs and Hunter Nemechek, I hat tip to those guys. They needed those runs.
Truly. Before we get too carried away with getting right into the recap here, let's bring it back up to speed here because we're getting a little ahead of ourselves. But we are part of FantasyGuru.com. In case you didn't know, this is the RaceGuru Thunder Hour, and you can go over to FantasyGuru.com. There's plenty of packages out there available. We're part of that content. We're a part of the MVP package, which you can get for $79.99 for the whole year. Great price, gets covered for 12 months. The MLB Draft Guide is available now at Fantasy Guru. You can get content from Ray Flowers and the rest of the MLB team there. And then we have plenty of options, including the Platinum, VIP, or all-in packages, which get you all the other sports. Hit up support at FantasyGuru.com in order to get you the best possible deal. Be nice to them, and you know what? They'll hook you up. That's all the promotional stuff. Now we can get back to race talk.
Sounds good to me. Did you tell them to make sure to click subscribe? And if not, check out support at fantasyguru.com. I always like to make sure we remind them of that 3 or 4 times.
Yeah. Subscribe, all the works. Just support us. If you like and enjoy the show, support us and show us some love there, even through Discord.
We do. Yeah, absolutely. We love those comments in Discord when you guys shout out some of the thoughts and things we're putting down there. So, this is a different week. So we are going to Rockingham. For those that don't know, the history at the Rock is quite long. Both North Wilkesboro and Rockingham were staples on the NASCAR schedule. When NASCAR wanted to expand and get beyond its roots, so to speak, felt like North Wilkesboro and Rockingham, both located there in the Southeast. They're not that far apart. I mean, one's in South Carolina, one's in North Carolina, but they're really not that far apart. I've always liked the tracks because they're different. They're very unique. They're not a cookie cutter of any type. They're a different size. Wilkesboro's pretty flat. The Rock has a little bit more banking to it. It's unfortunate that both speedways kind of got the shaft. This is the second go around of them trying to bring back the Rock. Andy Petrie? Tried to bring it back before, or who was it that bought it before? It wasn't Petrie. I'll have to look.
Don't remember.
They brought it back. They ran some truck races. It didn't catch on. They shut it down again, and now we're back. We're running Xfinity and Truck. North Wilkesboro's back on the schedule. That was just trucks for a minute with the All-Star race, but at least it's there for the All-Star race. Both venues needed some upgrading because it's been literally decades since we've had NASCAR back there. I'm excited to be back there. I wish the Cup guys were back there. I do enjoy the fact that the Cup guys took off. We joked on here before, Mark, but they take off for Mom and God, and that got kind of put to bed. Well, now we're back to taking off for God again, even though I'm pretty sure we run Mother's Day weekend now.
We do.
Yeah. So this is a small reprieve because I don't think there's another break till when, Sean? Is there the rest of the season, or is this the only break?
For Cup, there are no further breaks.
That's what I thought. So it's going to be a long season for the rest of the Cup guys, but we get a different taste. The good news is we get a different taste. It's a variety. Here's the bad news. We got no data, folks. When I say no data, I literally mean We have no data. When I go to submit my overview article this week and the track by the numbers section, we're not going to have any numbers. We don't even have loop data collected for this track at any series.
Okay.
So we are going blind. All right. Two things that means. One, we're going to have to, please don't rain out practice. Lord, please do not rain out practice. We need to have practice. Otherwise, we're going to have no information. Two, we could try to dig up sister tracks, brother tracks, whatever you want to call them. We could try to dig up driver history. Sean, outside of Matt Crafton and the driver yet to be named, maybe Allgaier?
No,
I don't know.
Allgaier's never raced it at this particular track either.
Okay.
I was going to say, I do actually know of some Xfinity guys that have ran this track before, which I can definitely tell you in the audience about later on for sure.
Okay.
That's a little tease for you.
Okay, because the only one I knew caught my eye when I was looking at lineups today, and I'm like, the guy hasn't been in a NASCAR in a while, but I'm pretty confident he drove at this track at one point in some series, probably trucks is my guess. And the only other one that came to mind was Matt Crafton, because he's like as old as I am and has been driving in the truck series for the last 3 decades. So I'm pretty confident he's the only driver that has been to all these tracks. It's going to be wild. I'm not going to recommend going big on entries. In fact, if you look, there's only one Xfinity slate available right now in the classic setup on DK. So bear in mind, from a fan standpoint, Mark, I think you're going to enjoy it.
I'm excited. I think, you know, I mean, look, I mean, we went kind of blind, not as blind as we're going this weekend, but pretty blind going into the trucks race last weekend. So there's still a path to win here. And I mean, personally for me, I'm going straight to Vegas, and I'll probably, a lot of my picks will be exclusively based off of where I think there's value plays on DraftKings versus starting position and what those guys' odds are to finish top 5, win the race, top 3, all that good stuff. So, that's how I do the trucks and Xfinity races for a large portion of my work. And then what I'll end up doing is circling back to your guys' articles and kind of making my final decisions from there. So I'm excited. I think the more we go blind, the less data is out there, the more edge we can potentially get over our competition, the easier it is to knock down a tournament.
I was going to say that this is a week where if you have knowledge of the sport, and you have knowledge of the teams, you have knowledge of the drivers and the equipment at hand, I think this is a week where you can take advantage of that or to use that to your best extent and be able to really win and get an edge over the competition there.
I expect the teams that have been fast the last few weeks to continue to be fast, right? There's not a ton of overlap, but Rockingham it's kind of a hybrid in my opinion. It's kind of like Richmond, right? It's a short track, but it's a little higher speed. We're not going to be, I guess Bristol's that way too. See, the difference was with the truck race this week with Bristol, I feel like anytime they set the qualifying order based on their equation, that's a benefit to us as fantasy players, because that equation doesn't take into consideration a lot of things that we already do, right? So yeah. I love it because they end up giving somebody like, I'm just going to throw a name out, a William Byron starting in the middle of the pack, because that truck hasn't raced every race. And so the way the metric works out, he can't be any further up than 24th. Well, I think he's going to be a top 10 truck all weekend. So to me, that's almost like a free square. Whereas this weekend, if we don't get qualified and we do it by the metric, to Mark's point, that is still good for us, because the JGR trucks, right, or the Tricon trucks, the JGR Xfinity cars, the JRM Xfinity cars, we're still going to bet them. We're still going to bank on them. So it would be great if, say, Connor Day started, mid-pack. Or
Corey Day, you mean?
Corey Day or Carson Guapo. I am getting, just so everybody knows, if you hear me screw up Connor Zilich, Corey Day, and Carson Guapo, I apologize. I keep interchanging those 3 drivers a lot lately, and I don't know why. They're very different, but they're all good.
You just don't do well with the C names, I guess.
I don't know what it is, dude. And the thing is I even see the cars different. Like, I turned around and was yelling at Zilich when I thought it was Guapo, and the other way around. And Guapel drove the 88 last year, though, right?
He did in some select races.
Okay,
yes.
that's part of my problem. I'm still associating Guapel with the 88, and Zilich is the 88. So
I've been getting that confused as well. I would agree with that. 88 belongs to Connor Zilich.
Yes,
This year it definitely does. Nobody
belongs
else is
to
driving
Junior.
that thing.
I would say it belongs to Junior. That much we know, right? Except I guess SVG's running it, right?
Yeah, he is in Cup, and Junior gave his blessing with that.
Yeah. Hat tip to Junior. He's been a good sport about all this stuff. Actually, his podcast with his wife, if you all get a chance, I'd recommend checking out. It's pretty hilarious. But yes, Sean, I apologize. I am jumping all over. I've been sick and I've been a little in the brain. I have a little more energy today, even though I sound like poo. But yes, take us off on the rundown, Sean. Break it down for us. There wasn't much to talk about for Xfinity and Cup, but why don't you break us down or start us off with the Truck Series?
So this is just pure and simple. We kind of touched on this already there too while we were jumping around, but yeah, there were 3 races at Bristol this past weekend. There we had the Truck Series race where, well, basically one of the big storylines this past weekend was Kyle Larson attempting another triple header, and well, he got 2 out of the 3 races. He missed it on the trucks, finishing second to Chandler Smith, who won, as Rich mentioned at the top of the show. But he put on a clinic in Xfinity and put on an absolute dominant performance in Cup, leading 400 plus laps there, which is absolutely bonkers. You do not see dominant performances like that every day. So if Larson was able to show confidence, show his bluntness, and show he could be a little cocky, he's kind of earned it this week as a result. But yeah. As far as the races are concerned, I thought the trucks race was probably the best of the 3 races. I mean, I don't think we can really argue about that. Xfinity, and then Cup, I'm not even sure I'm going to be able to go there without getting upset.
Well, let's let Mark cover Cup then. Let's let Mark cover Cup because he usually is a little more even keel. I also always love Mark's perspective because he's openly admitted he's not been, a diehard NASCAR fan forever. It's been relatively new. He's been pretty successful with the betting and the DFS play. So I always love hearing his takes. Sean, and I love Bristol, Mark. We'll caution you that we'll give you some clips from 2016, 2012, 2011, and let you watch those Bristol races and understand why. One of my favorites is the Kyle Busch, Carl Edwards race that went back and forth where Carl lost control of the steering wheel on the victory lap. I'll send you that one. That one's a great one to watch. Kurt Busch's Snow Angel race was a great one to watch. I'm curious your thoughts on this weekend's race, though, past weekend.
Well, I will say, I would agree. Trucks was my favorite. Xfinity, but the other cool thing about Trucks was it was just nice to see Kyle Larson, even though he still had a huge edge in the race, cede it to Chandler Smith. So I think there was a lot of cool takeaways that came out with the Trucks race. We were texting back and forth about it too, and it's like the winning lineup that I had was actually my hedge lineup for my 4 lineup build, where I had sub 6K guys built into 3 of my 4 lineups, but then my top lineup ended up having 7K and up. So I thought that was interesting because I didn't even realize that until I was like, yeah, like that was the right optimal build when you had reached out to me, Rich. And I remember you being like, well, yeah, but your top lineup didn't have a sub 6K guy.
Right.
I'm like,
I was like,
oh shit.
No
well,
way.
at least it helped my process and get me there with my hedge bet. So that was entertaining. But I would say for the Cup race, I was just, I would say my honest perspective was my wife and I watched it, and we were both just kind of sick of Kyle Larson at that point. And I like Kyle
Totally
Larson.
fair.
I enjoy watching him. Like, it is a pleasure. It is a treat. It's like saying, I'm kind of sick of watching LeBron James, even though he is really good too. And he is a pleasure to watch, and that we won't see it probably ever again or anything that similar. So I think it's the same thing with him, but it was also like, are they just going to let these Cup guys like just race every race of every weekend whenever the hell they want? Like, it just felt kind of doesn't it mess up like the playoffs too for Xfinity trucks when you get these guys that come down and win the race? Like, how does that impact what the playoff seating when you don't have championship drivers that are full-time in that series?
This is excellent questions, Mark, and I love that you went down this road because this was a big topic of what Kyle Larson talked about. Back in the day, go back about 20 years, there was no cap on how many races the Cup guys could run at the lower levels. To the point, Kevin Harvick at one point tried to win. His goal was to win an Xfinity, which I believe was Busch at the time, and Cup championship. He set a goal to win the 2 championships in 1 year. That had never been done, still hasn't been done, okay? Mark Martin used to whip up on the Busch series, what is now Xfinity. I mean, whoop up. There was a guy by the name of Sam Ard that did the same thing. Kyle Busch beat Sam Ard's record. Kyle Busch has obviously built that reputation. In fact, this gets scuttlebutt a lot. Kyle Busch technically has more NASCAR wins than Richard Petty because of how they related what they called what is now Cup and what it was back then is the Grand National Series. And they used to run multiple races a week. They didn't have trucks and Xfinity, et cetera, et cetera. That's a separate topic. Anyway, they used to let them do all this. Fans started complaining because, in fact, it got to the point there was a bounty on Kyle Busch's head. They were offering money for any truck or Xfinity regular to beat him. Okay. NASCAR said, we got to stop this. We're going to stop limiting these guys. So we're going to say you can only do 5 races a year at each of these other levels. And that's it.
And only certain races you're allowed to enter too.
Right. Because once the playoffs start, then they don't allow it anymore. Okay. So to your point, I would argue it doesn't really impact the playoffs because their points don't really matter. So the way the playoffs are set, yeah, you're right. It takes away potential wins from other guys in the Xfinity and Truck Series, but we still get people going in based on regular season points anyway. Okay.
Yeah.
So from that perspective, I don't think it changes it much. Now, I do like that they don't let them race in the playoffs. They do. Don't they let rookies or something, though? There's like a 1 year or 2 year window where they let you do something like that, Sean, because
it's a 3 year window where if you don't have more than 3 years of Cup experience, then you can run more than 5 races in the Xfinity or Truck Series. But you still cannot run any of the playoff races or any of the Dash for Cash races.
Right, but a truck driver could bounce up to Xfinity like we've seen in the past. I think Hocevar did that. He ended up running a playoff Xfinity race when he was a regular truck driver. So anyway, now the argument, though, and Kyle Larson talked about this, Mark, the argument is part of the reason we see such haphazard racing and people blowing doors off and being disrespectful. The argument is because we no longer have these Cup guys racing at the truck and Xfinity levels on a regular basis enough. Kyle Larson admitted that when he was an Xfinity regular and it was Kyle Busch, he goes, I didn't beat him, but boy, did I learn a lot running behind him. And he's like, so whether it's me, whether it's Chris Bell, whether it's Tyler Reddick, whether it's any of these guys, he's like, I think we need to get them more in these lower series. And that's where it came from. Shame on NASCAR for not allowing it. I get why NASCAR did it. My problem was, Sean, I think the number 5 is too small. You can get the same benefit by changing that number to, say, 10. Right? They're already splitting up the rides anyway. I mean, you see it in the 19, whether it's Eric. A perfect example for you, though, Mark, Eric Almirola. He is no longer in Cup, but I would argue we need these ex-Cup drivers. And that's what the Truck Series used to be. You know, Ron Hornaday dominated the Truck Series, but people forget he was a Cup driver for a while and just didn't really break through. But the dust up with him and Kyle Busch will go down in history. But Kyle learned off of Hornaday, whether he'll ever admit that or not. We saw that on the track. Jack Sprague was another one that kind of helped these folks. So there is some
Allgaier is a more current example if you really want to get recent, because he used to drive for Cup for a little while there too.
For 2 years.
Never really got anywhere.
Right. Johnny Sauter got up to Cup for a couple of years and then really didn't pan out. He ended up being the Truck Series. But I would argue we need more of these Cup guys in it. I get the fan thing. We don't want to see him, leading 400 some laps or dominating the field gets old. Nobody's going to deny that. But there is something to be said that these young guys need to learn from some of these veterans. And I do think that's been lost. That the art form of racing, in my opinion, is being lost. And we saw that at Martinsville. especially in the Xfinity series.
Truly. I do think that allowing the Cup guys to run a little more often, I would not be against that. I really just think that the fans back then just hated it because it was Kyle Busch winning so
I
many
don't disagree.
times.
Nobody when it was Mark Martin doing it, right? I mean, I think you're spot on, Sean, because Mark Martin did. I mean, I'll go pull the data if people want. Mark Martin was winning, like, one year he won something like 80% of the Xfinity races he entered. It was mind-blowing. He absolutely dominated, and nobody said a word.
Yeah, pretty much. Mark was just that good. And it's also because Mark was a likable driver at that time. He was liked by fans. So, of course, they'd be happy to see him win. Think about it back towards 2010s. Kyle Busch was probably the most hated driver out there.
Oh, he was the loudest booze.
Of course, if you see a driver that you don't like winning, of course you're going to hate everything that they do. Of course.
Well, Jeff Gluck does the whole, was it a good race or not? And you can go back and look, depending on who won the race, is whether it was a good race or not. Kyle Busch wins, bad race. Chase Elliott wins, great race. I'm looking at it like I don't know what people were watching, But, Mark, I really appreciate you picked up on that. We're kind of looking at that because you haven't been around for all the malarkey that went on with all this crap going back in the day.
Yeah, I mean, it's again, from a perspective of a fan who has recently got into it and probably has a similar perspective to newer fans looking at the sport. You watch all three races over the weekend, and it's just Kyle Larson the whole time. It gets a little old. That's all.
It's real old.
Like maybe there should be a rule against just not doing all three in one weekend. Like you can only pick one lower series or something like that.
I think that's fair. I think the reason they haven't gone that route is Kyle Busch does have a 3-race sweep. And there is
twice he did it too.
Yeah, I say twice. So I won't say there's a bounty on it, but because it's been done, and let's not forget, Kyle Larson has openly admitted his goal for life is to go down as one of the greatest race car drivers ever. So if he's going to do that, I would argue he needs to at least match what Kyle Busch did, right? And he better start running some NHRA because he's going to have to match what Tony Stewart's doing. I mean, the real goal, and Larson has admitted this, Tony Stewart is probably where the goal is or the target is because he ran IRL. Yeah, he doesn't have an Indy 500 win, but boy, he came close. Doesn't have a Daytona 500 win, but he's a NASCAR Hall of Famer, all these things. So if you're going to talk about the AJ Foyts, the Mario Andretti's of yesteryear and John, I'm forgetting some of my favorites, man. Johnny Rutherford, you're going to have to do that stuff, right? So, but that said, and I'll go this far, Mark, I don't know if it would have been this crappy if it weren't for the fact that it was poor racing at the track in general. Like, had this happened because nobody really grabbed as much at Miami, but I would argue all three of the Miami race, Kyle didn't really if he dominated any of them. Yeah, I guess he did dominate the truck race and then lose it, right? So I guess he did kind of.
You mean at a Homestead earlier in the year? He dominated that Xfinity race until he lost it on the last restart there.
It was Xfinity that he dominated.
Yeah. And then trucks, it was like he was he didn't dominate the whole time, but then he won it at the end. It was someone else. Right. I don't know who it was, but yeah, kind of the opposite.
Heim had dominated it, right? And then cut the tire. But to your point, Mark, I think that's what played into it. Had it not been the Kyle Larson show for all three races, it's not as a bummer. But to your point, and I'm in complete agreement with you, having one driver, and I don't care who it is. I don't care if it was Christopher Bell. I don't care if it's Kyle Busch. It's not good for the sport when people like yourself are going NASCAR superstar, and I don't want to see him anymore.
Yeah.
And I think it's a fair take.
I appreciate watching him. Like, I have nothing against him.
Right.
I would say he's probably one of my favorite drivers. It was just a lot. It was very repetitive.
Agreed. It's hey, I love ice cream, but if you give me a gallon of ice cream and tell me I have to eat it before it melts, I'm going to get sick, and I may not ever want to eat that particular ice cream again. Right?
There you go. That's a perfect analogy.
Kind of the same.
Yeah.
Kind of the same. So I'm bummed that this is the Bristol you got, Mark. I'll be completely frank. I am glad you turned it into financial gains, because if we're going to get some stinkers of a show, I hope I will say this. It's easier to profit when it's a stink fest. When it's chaos, it's a lot harder to profit as a general rule. So there is that. And I love your point about, using the equation to our advantage. You're right, Mark. That is one of the, I don't want to say secret weapons, but I tell you what, when truck practice got canceled, I did feel better because I was very torn on how I was looking at some of the drivers. But then once we got the equation set, it was like, folks, the chalk just became very obvious to us, which Mark has taught me. I have to focus on ownership as a factor in my decision-making more. That was really, really helpful.
That being said, I'm just going to say this, though, about the Cup race. Stinkfest stink even worse when you can't financially gain off of it because it becomes an unpredictable mess with no action at all and sucked big time.
That's fair. Well, at this point, I will say this. NASCAR looks borderline panicky. Bristol is their gem, Mark. That place used to have a waiting list. It holds 160,000 people. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you guys noticed how empty those stands were. The spring race has always been a little light, but even the fall race is starting to see that. And you can tell NASCAR is now borderline like, we hear you. We have a problem. We are all working on fixing it. Let's see some action.
The only time within the past 2 or 3 years when the stands even had any kind of action in it was when they put dirt on the track. Just saying.
And that only worked for 2 years, the first 2 years, and then it went away after that too. So and I'm not with Chase Briscoe. I know Briscoe said bring the dirt back. No, go to Eldora. Don't bring the dirt back. Just don't put PGA 1 on the bottom of the track. That I blame NASCAR straight up for that. You knew the resin ate the tires, so why did we go back to PGA 1? Like, if anything, I think I would have done like strips of resin throughout the track just randomly, just to make it chaotic, right? Instead, they went with what we know gave us boring racing before. And Lane Riggs, as young as a driver as he is, I think he hit the nail on the head because he said it was going to be great, and they ruined it by doing that. They took away the high line. And my opinion, Bristol, the best Bristol is when you have to do a slide job like at a dirt track and they run the high line. I'm not a fan of the bump and run. I get people love it. I'm just not a fan of it. But at least when the high line comes in, we still get sliding. We still get noses getting cut off. We still get action. We got conveyor belts, guys.
Yeah. And you know what? It was just not good. Not good whatsoever at all.
Please no rain so they can practice because I'm worried we're going to have a conveyor belt this weekend if they don't.
Yes, please. For Rockingham. Please let it be for the Rock. We want action at the Rock. We want the Rock to rock.
All right, let's hit some news and let's get into Rockingham because there's a couple of drivers I want to talk about, and I know you do too, Sean. And Mark, I would love, because you've never seen the Rock, I'm sure, right? Like, have you done any digging at all to look at past race history there at all or anything?
Honestly, the data, like you said, I just kind of threw it out the window. So my approach, I figured, especially going into this conversation with you guys, is I am going to take strictly a Vegas sportsbook approach to this, and then see if we can combine the guys that I'm coming to from a value perspective, a price point versus Vegas odds perspective, and see if there's a happy medium with you two from a driving standpoint and NASCAR standpoint, if we can come up with some common names. So, and I feel like we are just from a preliminary standpoint coming up with a few common names. So I'm excited to talk through that, and we're coming from two different angles. So, but I'm going to really try to take a strict Vegas perspective. And I think that will also kind of make my process maybe even more transparent to everyone.
I love it.
Especially when it comes to trucks and Xfinity, because it's, I have been profitable for trucks and Xfinity, and it's there is less data for it. So I truly feel like when there's less data out there, there's an easier way, a clearer path to winning.
I think you're right, Mark, and I will be the first to admit, I've said this to you privately. I know we've talked about it. I am thoroughly impressed with your process. And I do want to understand the process more. And I know we've talked about working a little bit when we get some time on the ownership, because when you've thrown up the ownership for me after the cheat sheets I put up, my God, Mark, it has been so helpful. I cannot speak high enough to your intelligence level on how to play this game. And I take a lot of pride in knowing that we give you a little bit of tidbits from the racing, NASCAR history side that you pick. Like, you seem to know what data to pick that matters. And I'm with you. I feel like the less data we have, the more we can gain, because the Sharks have less to use, right? The Sharks live on that data. They live on the percentages. I'm a little more kamikaze. And I know that the guys in the chat, guys and girls in the chat, they love the gut shots and stuff like that. That's my kamikaze coming through. I was very confident in feeling the 34 and the 38 this weekend in the trucks at Bristol, both from spring last year, both from fall last year, from where they're running this year. The fact that I know Chandler Smith is carrying the weight of the world on his shoulders and he wanted to run well here. I mean, there's all these other nuances that go to it. And I don't do great with the Vegas side. And so, Mark, your education for me on that is so massive. Like, I can't tell you how excited I am that we get to kind of play with it this week, because this is low contest. There's not going to be not a ton of data. I don't think we're going to have to fight through the Sharks as much. I think this is a prime opportunity for us. And that's why I said I'm really hoping we get some practice, because there's enough data with practice that can at least help us avoid some pitfalls. Maybe we do screw up, like Sean said, and, Brad, who looked the worst in practice at Cup, but ended up being the best one. That stuff happens, but there's teammates. If all the teammates are, 2 of the 3 are decent and one's not, I kind of go with the 2 that are decent and expect the third to get there. So I'm really curious because there is a lot of oddities this weekend as I went through looking at the driver's slate. So should we hit some news and notes real quick, and then we'll jump right into it?
Exactly. Let's quickly go through it here. So, first news story that we have is about Catherine Legg. She filled out the rest of her 2025 Cup and Xfinity Series schedule. So, I'll just quickly get into the dates right here. So, in Cup, it's all going to be with Live Fast Motorsports and that number 78 team. So, not great equipment as it stands right there. But she will be racing at Mexico City, Chicago Street Course, Sonoma Raceway, Watkins Glen, and then Richmond Raceway for the second race there. So overall, it's mostly road courses, which I think is a better fit for her because she comes from a road racing background anyway, from IMSA and sports cars. So that right there is a good call. But as for the Xfinity Series, because she's doing some starts there too, and I think this is the more interesting angle for us fantasy players in order to take, is in the Xfinity Series, where she's going to be going to a variety of racetracks right there with Jordan Anderson Racing. So as we know, that's
equipment,
much better equipment compared to Live Fast and Cup. So over there, she's going to be racing in Talladega at April very soon, Texas in May, Charlotte in May, Nashville in May, Atlanta in June, and rounding it out with Indianapolis in July. So overall, it's more ovals there compared to Cup, where she's going to be pretty much being a road course ringer.
Smart to put her on the road courses. Mark, when you start looking at Vegas odds, let me know if you find any for what lap she will wreck on. I'll be interested in placing some of those bets.
There's definitely no positive expected value with her from what I'm seeing so far. So like going a different direction.
Will refrain from doing something to get me canceled, but I will say this, just like anybody else that can bring sponsorship, she's able to bring money for who she is, not for the quality of driver she is. Is that fair, Sean? Did I teeter that line well enough?
Yeah, I'd say that would be more fair, because we've seen our share of pay drivers in NASCAR too. So
right, she's not alone. Okay, but Danica, much better resume, for example. Travis Pastrana, in my opinion, better resume, for example. Fine. She's been in Indy. I think that's part of where the sponsorship comes from.
Yeah.
She's been at Indy 500, and so the name is there. The funny thing I see is the amount of people online that think she's a really talented racer. She's decent. Her prime is behind her. I had to dig deep to find podium finishes for her at any of the series. She's going to be a fave for me for DFS. I'll just tell you that.
Yeah. Oh yeah. From a DFS perspective, for sure. I do think it's a good attempt by NASCAR to try and bring in an additional audience. I think the problem is, are you maximizing off of that, or are you just having her race and then not centering anything else around her? Because I feel like I personally don't see any kind of promotion, anything, maximizing that opportunity. It just feels like they're having her participate, but not truly taking advantage of it, I guess. So, I don't know, maybe a missed opportunity for not fully taking advantage of it.
I will say this, though. I will say this. At the very least, they've thought about this more and gave her better tracks and better opportunities compared to when they just slapped her in the car and told her to run Phoenix.
Jordan Anderson Racing will be top 20 equipment. So her just wrecking by herself, I don't think happens like we saw with Live Fast in the first event. They really should have put her on road courses, especially. I think it would have been helpful in the Truck or Xfinity. Put her where she's comfortable. Tori Behringer, they started her out at Kansas. She had history in other series at Kansas. That makes sense, right? And I'm with you, Mark. I had a friend and her daughter hated racing, thought it was so stupid. Then she met Danica Patrick and she became a race fan, right? And so I want to see, as much as people hated on Danica, I didn't hate on her. I just wish she had been better, right? I wish the performances had just been a little bit better. There are a couple of young women coming up that I feel like, unfortunately, they're not getting as much publicity and money. And in my opinion, it's because they're not smoking hot. And it bothers me because I think they're better talents. And I want to see, just like I want to see Bubba do well, I think it's good for the sport and the fandom. I want to see whatever the next female driver is. I want to see her competitive. If there is any sport that I can see men and women competing at equally on the same field, it's motorsports, where the equipment is 50%. And the driving isn't 100% just physical strength. It's endurance. It is strength. It's hand skill or hand-eye coordination and skill. So I want to see it, but I don't want to force the issue just because she's been at Indy 500. She's a good-looking woman, and we're willing to give her money, right? Like, I want to see some success. Like, I am really bummed that Kelly Earnhardt, which she's not in Earnhardt anymore, but Kelly's daughter, Carson, decided to quit racing. She was pretty good coming up. I was hoping we were going to see her, and it just didn't happen. So I'm with you, Mark. I think, though, as we get closer to the races, I think you'll see more hubbub. I think right now they're not really pushing the hubbub because everyone has a lot of egg on their face from the fact that she spun out, 2 or 3 times all by herself last time. Like, that's really
right from the get-go, too.
Right, yeah. Right.
It was not a good look.
No.
I just, from a ticket sales perspective, because I did ticket sales for 7 years for actually the Mets. So,
there you go.
Exactly. So it's the reason why I referenced that. I'm like, why can't you get like a massive women's group out for young women racers, iRacers, wherever it's coming from?
Mark, bring them out. An idea, bud.
Bring them out to the track. Get a whole group section where they're all wearing the same shirt, and then you can get it on TV, all pushing her. Like, there's marketing elements that you can bring into it. So it just seems like we're not. Yeah, they're gonna have a couple segments on it, I'm sure, here and there. But I just feel like there's not an actual they're not actually seizing the full opportunity that comes along with it.
So what else is on the ticket? I mean, Mark's got brilliant ideas for NASCAR, whether they listen to him or not, can't help that. But I think they're missing the boat. I think Mark's on to something. So what else we got? And please tell me, do we have to talk about lug nuts, Sean?
We do not, even though there was one single lug nut penalty. It was just for Justin Allgaier's team in Xfinity this past weekend. But that's just a moot point because really that was the only one. So Let's get into more exciting news and news that I think you'll like a little bit better. Jesse Love is going to get 2 more Cup Series starts with sports at Texas and Indianapolis. How about that?
Well, I wish it would be with RCR, but I will take Jesse Love getting extra seat time no matter where it is. I really enjoy this young man, His interviews, his driving style, his attitudes. And look, there's a lot of young talent in the Xfinity series right now that I love, whether it's Sammy Smith, Jesse Love, Carson Guapel, Corey Day, Connor Zillich. There is Sheldon Creed deserves a little bit of props. Sam Mayer. There's a lot of fun talent coming up. I'd love to see these guys getting some seat time. I don't expect much in these cars, but Mark, you and I've talked about it. Extra seat time has helped. We have noticed that. You love finding the double dippers.
Yeah, because you do. I do agree though. It's like because especially because tracks change so much year to year, they'll make little minor adjustments here and there as well. So, but no, I mean Jesse Love, I think the other encouraging thing about him is he's been qualifying, I think, pretty well too. I mean, last week he qualified where 20th,
19th in Cup in his debut.
Yep, 19th in Cup. Yep.
So I feel like that's going to translate here as he continues to get some of these starts. So I'm excited.
I think the real interesting thing about this that we aren't talking about as much is Beard Motorsports in general doing starts at a track that's not a super speedway based race. I think that's more interesting.
I had thought about that because I see Beard and I'm just kind of like, it's an opportunity to get a car on the track, get sponsorship. But you're right. The only time we ever see them is at the Degas and the Daytonas and the Atlantas of the world. So that's a valid point. And it's kind of a big deal for both the car owner and driver to get to run the oval at Indy. I don't care if it's in an open wheel car. I don't care if it's in a stock car. Driving on the historic Indianapolis Motor Speedway is a rush. And I got to tell you, I did the NASCAR experience there one year. Those straightaways are super long, man. Like, oh my gosh, are they really, really long? Like, you don't realize it watching it on TV, but holy cow, when you hear the car just pegged out for seems like 10 seconds, it's crazy.
Yeah, so it's real exciting to see not just Jesse Love getting more seat time with in the Cup Series, but with Beard Motorsports expanding out to other tracks too. And the other thing is that Beard has a relationship with RCR, so that's how you can also tell that the partnership is still going strong between them too.
So they do have an alliance. I was going to ask you that. So there is an alliance. So we don't have to necessarily worry about Love's not going to get a little extra something to help the cause.
Yeah, I think there's going to be an RCR connection at play. Now, I don't think it's going to be the same as a third RCR team where there's going to be more support to that, but I do think there is at least going to be some.
Why do you think they didn't go with a third RCR team for that and went ahead and signed them out there at Beard?
I assume it was just how the deal came together, and especially because maybe RCR did not have the resources in order to go forth and build a third car, especially after what just happened, I guess, with Bristol and the damage and all that. I mean, they're still figuring out other spots in sponsorship, and I know Beard has their own sponsors too, and maybe some of those sponsors may have been like, "Hey, we want to see Jesse Love in a car. Let's."
That very well could be and it could have been, a sponsor that they have for Daytona or Talladega that said, "Hey, we're willing to pay for another race. Can you get? We'd like to have drivers XYZ, or is this a driver? We know you have this relationship." That's a really good point. Because sponsors do get to do that. I mean, when you offer a team money and say, "All right, here's $300,000 to sponsor you for a race, but we want this driver if you can get him."
Yeah,
because that happened that's the whole Hamlin Eric Almirola thing. Remember when the sponsor's like, "Yeah, that's fine, Eric Almirola's winning, but we want Denny in our car because that's what we paid for." So they said, "All right, we'll go a lap down and we'll put Denny in the car."
Yeah. Mark's looking at this like, what?
I think we talked about that. We talked about that with Mark before.
Yeah, and the other, I feel like this, for some reason, this is triggering my memory with a few weeks ago, someone posted in the Discord how, I think it was the trucks race. I think it was Taco Todd talking about this, where the trucks race, they were like giving out like fan sponsorship to cars or something like that, or like they were offering public sponsorship to anyone that was interested in sponsoring a truck at some point later in the season. I don't know, it seems like
they've done that.
Getting a little loose.
Yeah, well, they've done that before. They'll do these special rides where, hey, you can pay $200 and get your signature on the side of the car. Kenny Wallace did this years ago, where from the TV you couldn't see it, but when the TV zoomed in while I was in the pits there or before the pre-race, you could see all these names and signatures all over the car. So they've done. I mean, you want to talk about sponsorship getting loose? Sometime off air, Mark, I'll have to share you some stories where teams straight up lied. Like, there have been numerous lawsuits in NASCAR over sponsorships that never materialized that are owed money to teams.
Oh, yeah.
There's
been quite an extensive history of that.
Wasn't it Stacy? I can't think of Stacy's first name. He has one of the biggest, I think it was Stacy. There's a guy from the 80s and 90s that has, like, his name is absolute mud in the garage because of the crap he pulled. So, yeah. His sponsorship's been a little loose for a long time, bro. But yes, you're right. They get a little goofy with it.
I'm just going to say this. DC Solar, look it up.
Oh, that was another one. They got raided.
Oh, yeah. You want a real crazy sponsorship story there, Mark? You look up about DC Solar and the Xfinity Series with Chip Ganassi.
Yeah.
There you go.
That one got the feds were involved with that one.
Yeah, it was absolutely wild with that one. It actually changed the career trajectories of different drivers too as a result. So
yeah, because they lost their ride. They lost their ride. There was no ride. Oh, it was gnarly. But the same thing happened in the 80s. I can't remember the guy's name. It was really bad. They went like 2 years, and then all of a sudden, poof. Anyway, moving on.
We got one more quick story here too. So, Rich, I have to ask you a question here. Do you remember GMS Racing?
I do.
So what do you think about the fact that GMS Racing might be making a comeback here?
Well, my first thought would be, did Hattori reach out for some assistance? Because after losing their main owner tragically in a car accident 2 weeks ago, I have been very concerned about Hattori Racing. So if GMS wanted to come back in some way, shape, or form, my first thought would be, I hope we don't lose Hattori. I wanted GMS back. Correct me if I'm wrong. Wasn't GMS who Infinger was last with?
Yeah, it was. But here's a question I have to pose to you. What would you think about GMS Racing making a comeback in the Truck Series, but with Dodge?
Oh! Is it getting official yet? Because I know we've been this close to the official announcement of Dodge coming back.
So let me put it this way there. There was an article on Sportsnut that touched on this that came out that was talking about the fact that GMS Racing might be getting something together behind the scenes with Spencer Gallagher leading the team. But also spotted apparently was the fact that apparently on a truck, a Dodge symbol was on it.
Look, the last scuttlebutt we heard was Dodge was coming back in 2026 for the Truck Series, and the hope and goal was to get up to Cup. Now, I don't know what's happening with that, because part of the reason Dodge left is they wanted someone with their own engine shop, and Penske was not going to do that anymore, and they had left Ford. Joe Gibbs got out of it because that was the scuttlebutt then, but they had the engine fire or the fire in their engine shop, so now they went to TRD for that. So the only engine shops that were left were all Chevy. I mean, my question would be, if Dodge goes back to trucks, Cup is going to be imminent. So what teams are looking to be top dog with somebody else instead of second fiddle with Chevy or Ford?
What I think is also very interesting, too, to see this come to fruition is not just GMS being aligned with Dodge, but we got to also think about the connection that, first of all, they have to Legacy Motor Club, because Maury Gallagher is one of the shareholders in Legacy Motor Club as well in Cup. And, they had a hand in that as well, too. And as far as
Petty was Dodge for a long time. I mean, Legacy took over Petty.
Well, GMS also made it up to Cup at one point and aligned themselves with Petty.
That's right, they did. I forgot about that.
Right before it was Legacy Motor Club, Maury Gallagher, he took his team up to Cup and then merged with Petty, and that became Petty GMS.
That's right, and then it turned to Legacy shortly thereafter. That's right.
Yep, soon after Jimmy Johnson got involved.
I'd love to see it. I'd love to see. Look, I would love to have Dodge back in the sport. I do agree the sport would be better with 4 manufacturers. The challenge I see every time we get a fourth, somebody seems to drop out. And I'm worried. I'm worried about a manufacturer, specifically in the truck series, and that's Ford. They don't have much of a footprint at all. They've been doing okay in Cup, so I don't know that they're necessarily going away. But that is my fear, Sean, is we have not. And look, does that mean the Honda rumors are just gone now? Is that kind of where your thought is?
As far as Honda is concerned, it's still up in the air. I think it's just going to be based upon what happens with IndyCar in the near future and how they go through that deal. I think that's what it's really riding on, because we've not seen anything definitive yet with Honda there yet. And I'm sure if Honda does not get a deal going with Indy, they're going to be looking elsewhere. And I think NASCAR is one of the top destinations they were considering.
That makes sense.
For what it's worth, I mean, for what it's worth on my end, I'm considering buying a truck, and I'm not considering buying a truck that's Honda or a Toyota. So Dodge is in the consideration. So I'm good with this. Know your fan base? I don't know.
No, but you know what, Mark? In all seriousness, if this was 1990 and we were having this discussion, absolutely, I guarantee you there would be discussion about what our personal vehicles were and who we were fans of. Like there was something to what wins on Sunday sells on Monday. And you could talk to old Dale Sr. fans, and Dale Sr. can't win, it better be a Chevy. That was the case until Jeff Gordon was driving a Chevy. Then Senior fans had these weird meltdowns where it was like, well, as long as it's a Chevy, but not Gordon. It's like, what? It's still a Chevy, dude. Like, what are you doing here? But that's how it was. Or if it's not Bill Elliott, better be a Ford. I mean, that's how it was. And what people forgot is Petty has driven for all of them. Dodge, Buick, Oldsmobile, Chevy. I'm forgetting one, Sean. I feel like there was another one.
There have been Petty Fords before in Plymouth. Yeah.
Plymouth. Yeah. So I'm all for it. And look, this whole Made America thing is kind of making a comeback. Like, I don't remember if you guys remember growing up and being told about the Buy American or Made in America tags on the clothes and all the commercials during the 80s and whatnot. That was a thing, right? And we're kind of transitioning back to that. I love this. I'm excited. And GMS was not a whatever truck organization. I mean,
they were not.
No,
they won 2 championships.
I was going to say, Enfinger won a championship with them, right? And
no, that's what was they won 2. They won with Enfinger, and then they won in 2020 with Sheldon Creed.
Oh, that's right. They did win it with Creed. I forgot about that. So
I will say, I as a newer fan, it's really driving my decision on what type of truck I'm going to get. And Ford took a big hit when Ryan Blaney's engine blew a few weeks ago. That was they lost so much money off of that Ford immediately dropped to the bottom of the list for me. It immediately became Chevy, and after this past weekend, it's hard not to think I'm not getting a Chevy here.
So he's on the Silverado train at the moment.
Exactly.
Hey, I can't fault him. I
can't have an engine blow after 30,000 miles.
I mean, when you think back towards the Cup Series, Chevy has not really had any engine failures, unlike Ford and Toyota. So there you go.
Bowman lost a cylinder this weekend.
Yeah.
Well, other than Bowman. Yeah, there you go. I guess
Bowman's
all of them
fault.
aren't perfect, but that's another part of my weekend I kind of was hoping to forget too, because he ruined some of my DFS stuff.
Well, and it was looking good. I looked up at the TV at one point and was like, damn, Sean, that was a good call, because I was very lukewarm and like, on Bowman. And I saw that, I was like, oh, good call, Sean. And then I looked later, I'm like, what the happened? And then I saw on the reports that he had lost a cylinder. And I tell you what, some tracks you can lose a cylinder and kind of maintain for a while. Bristol is not one of those tracks.
Unfortunately.
Too many high RPMs and acceleration that you need. Some of the longer ones, you can get away with that, not Bristol. So on to this week's race, Sean. Can we talk about this week's drivers? Because now I'm excited about this week's drivers.
Yeah, now let's get into Rockingham there. Let's see if we can rock the rock here this week.
Rock. The Rock. That's what they call it, too. back at the Rock. So I'm not going to mention his name yet because he's not in the truck series. Oh, shoot. I don't have it handy, Sean. You want to start off with the truck list? I didn't have it pulled up. I'm sorry, man.
All right. So before I get into the list here, too, just to reiterate about our strategy for this week, pay very close attention to practice and qualifying. Note who's good on longer runs, and note where everybody is starting and figure out place differential right there. Get a nice balanced lineup for DFS. You want to get yourself a dominator or two. Look for place differential where possible. And then just look for drivers that are going to have some solid days or ones who look like they've been having solid days. And those are going to be the drivers that are most likely going to be ones that we've kind of hammered on all year to be good. And that applies to both trucks and Xfinity. Not often that we're going to have a primary focus be on the Xfinity race this week, but that's the fun appeal of a weekend like this. Now, getting into the actual list here. For trucks, we have Brandon Jones in the number 1 for Tricon Garage. Stephen Malazzi is back in the number 2 for Rome Brothers Racing. Nathan Bird is back in the 02 for Young's Motorsports. Norm Benning is back again in the number 6. Corey Day is in the number 7 for Spire. Sammy Smith is in the second part-time Spire entry, the 07. Cody Dennison is in the number 22 for Rome Brothers Racing. Timmy Hill is back in the number 56 for Hill Motorsports. Luke Fenhouse is in the number 66 for ThorSport Racing. Parker Kligerman is in the number 75 for Henderson Motorsports. That's exciting. And Justin S. Carroll is in the number 90 for Terry Carroll Motorsports.
Awesome. I'll go through the Xfinity list if you want here, Sean.
Go right ahead.
So we got Patrick Immerling in the 07 with SS Greenlight Racing. Justin Bonsignor in the number 19 Joe Gibbs Racing Machine. Previously mentioned Catherine Legg will be in the number 32 Jordan Anderson Racing. And here's the name, the guy I've been eyeballing. Casey Kane makes his triumphant return in the number 33 for Richard Childress Racing. Greg Van Alst with the number 35 Joey Gase Machine. Vincent Salas and the number 45 Alpha Prime. Vincente Salas. Thank you, Sean.
Yeah.
Alpha Prom Racing. JJ Yaley is back with 53 and Joey Gase. Tyler Tomasi in the number 66 Motorsports Business Management car. Thomas Annunziata and the number 70 Cope Family Racing Machine. Dawson Cram is back. Yep. Dawson Cram is back in the number 74 Mike Harmon Racing team. Austin Green, number 87 Jordan Anderson Racing, and Josh Bilicki, number 91 for DGM. There are no Cup cars this weekend. Sean, I can't lie. I'm excited for Casey Kane.
It's very cool and very exciting to see old Casey Kane back again, just racing in NASCAR. We have not seen him in a couple of years, ever since he basically went to part-time. Well, he attempted a full-time season with Levine Family Racing back in like 2017 or so, or 2018. And then he had to step out of the car because he kept getting heat exhaustion after races and couldn't continue. It's unfortunate, but it's great to see him back there too. And that's competitive equipment that he's going to have there too.
Right.
Being in a third RCR car. And we know RCR and Xfinity is strong-armed.
They are. And I want to remind folks, Casey Kane at one point was pretty much assumed to be a future Cup champion, multiple race winner. And in fact, his rookie year, he had like 3 second-place finishes.
Including this very track.
I would say including this track. So, and I did not realize until about a month ago about the heat exhaustion thing, that had shortened his NASCAR career, because I always felt bad that he lost some of the good equipment, and some of that wasn't his fault with the whole Dodge and Ray Evernham thing. And he did some dirt racing, and he had a couple of bad accidents in dirt racing. He's a fun guy to watch race, man. And I'm just happy. And I'll be the first to admit, I will not be shocked if he looks good this weekend. I won't be. I kind of expect it, to be honest, Sean.
I think he's definitely going to be showing out some results. I still kind of want to wait and see before I fully lock in.
That's fair.
But I do think, though, that he has my attention. He certainly has my attention. And I think anybody that has a history of watching NASCAR, and if you're listening to this podcast, you should keep this name in mind, especially if he starts showing results.
Like you said, RCR's been good equipment in Xfinity. This is nothing new. he's one of only like what 2 drivers all weekend with experience here, 3 maybe.
There's at least 3 or 4 that you can argue.
Because I want to say Austin Green's been there before. JJ Yaley may have.
Yaley may have back in the Xfinity series, I think, but he's not one of the names I was thinking of that is going to be, I think, really worth watching there. I'll get into those names very soon for you, Rich. I think you'll find it interesting.
I'm all ears. Well, let's move on then. Mark, you got any thoughts or questions so far? Because I know there's a lot of random stuff right now.
Well, Casey Kane's minus 120 to finish in the top 5 without qualifying even happening. So it's interesting.
Oh, that is interesting.
I mean, just as good of odds as Austin Hill. So,
well, way to rain on my parade, Mark.
I think it's positive.
No, great find. Seriously, Mark, great find on that. I hadn't even. Okay, so apparently Vegas feels the same way we do, I guess is what you're saying then.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be curious to see how they're getting there with that, other than just like you said, RCR. I mean, does it really have that much weight? I think that's kind of the takeaway is the equipment he's in, is that going to be an indicator that he's minus 120 to finish top 5 and that's it? Or is there something else out there that we're missing?
I think it's a mix. He's run Cup here. He's run Cup in general. So it's just like, the Kyle Larson effect to win minus 150, even though we hate chasing odds like that. So I think he's run well here previously. There's not a lot of people who have run here previously in the field. Like Sean will get to that. He has Cup experience, and most of these guys he's racing against have never gotten a lot of, Austin Hill has, but a lot of these guys, Justin Allgaier, haven't gotten a lot of Cup experience. So I'm guessing Vegas is kind of taking the lazy approach that I took there, which was past history was good when he's been in good equipment. Yeah, it's been years, but this isn't the Cup car. If it was Casey Kane hopping in a Cup car, I wouldn't be as excited. The fact that he's hopping in an Xfinity car, which is much more similar to what Kane ran as a Cup car when he did run, I think bodes well for him as a driver. So the equipment and driver history, I think, is what they're banking on. Now, let's say we see practice and he sucks in practice, Mark. I will be shocked if those odds don't drop to plus 240 or something like that.
Well, that's a good point. So that's part of my process too, is the first thing that I want to do is screenshot what the odds are now, compare them to what the odds look like after qualifying, if they even go back up. So if we get posted odds after qualifying, I would expect we would, since there's no Cup race in general this weekend, but who knows? And I don't know what weekend. The other question is, what time is qualifying versus when the race is? And do we have a lot of time in between? Because if it's at like noon the day of versus the night before, that would probably indicate whether we're going to get odds posted post-qualifying as well. But to me, it seems like Kane is going to be a good DFS play and a bad bet.
I would agree with your take so far.
And just to confirm it there about the scheduling, qualifying is the day before the Xfinity race.
So I would expect us to get post-qualifying odds. And then there's a lot of weight. Take a screenshot of what it looks like now versus what it looks like afterwards. And let's see how much qualifying impacts those numbers, because that will be in line with how we look at the results of qualifying versus how Vegas does.
So to your point, Mark, I will not be shocked if we don't get truck lines after practice and qualifying. There is 4 hours, 3.5. So maybe, but to your point, we should at least get it for Xfinity. And, I want to say last year on Easter weekend, we saw the same thing. The truck lines didn't drop on Friday. They locked at practice and it was hours, and they never post them. Although I did notice after I tagged Jeff last week asking for him 2 weeks ago, DK did respond and said, we got some up, and they did have some winners up before the race. So I did find that interesting.
That is interesting.
Very interesting indeed.
Yeah. I said, Jeff, can you, I said something like, cancel. I said, I can't go for that or cancel DK. truck lines locked and we got no lines, blah, blah, blah. And DK support reached out. What, can you tell us what you're referencing? What state you're in? I said, it doesn't matter what state I'm in. It's on your line. You got no lines whatsoever. None. Zero. You had them. They're gone. Oh, we'll have them up shortly. And they did. They had some lines to win up. They didn't have top 5s, top 10s, but they did get them up about a half hour, 40 minutes before the race. I don't know if it's because Jeffrey tweeted it. I'll be dead serious. I will not be shocked because Jeffrey tweeted it that I got a response. But
hey, that's what happens when you have influence.
Their staff is smaller, and I know that they are looking to expand staff because I have been seeing openings for their sports book specifically when it comes to data analysis and product support.
DK, so if you want to start getting good NASCAR lines, please contact the RaceGuru Thunder Hour.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
I've been saying it for a while. We could run their
There
lines,
you go.
I have. I've been saying it for a while. And in all fairness, we do a pretty good job of predicting what they're going to come out at and what they should be, you know? And in all fairness, whether it's been you, Sean, or Mark, when we've highlighted lines that are off, maybe the driver didn't win, maybe they didn't get top 5, whatever, but the showings were there. You know what I mean? Where like Bailey Curry, things like that happen with the losing the cylinder. His odds were ridiculous. They were so off for him being in a top 10, let alone the top 5, you know? So DK, just saying, I will put us up against your handicappers on NASCAR any day of the week. So you want extra half staff for help? We're here. You better ask Jeff first, but we're here. But you do need to talk to Jeff first. Just going to throw that out there.
There you go. Now, before we get into the rest of our preview there, speaking of Jeff, he is a part of FantasyGuru.com, just like us. So
he's kind of the main guy.
Yeah, I mean, come on. He's kind of a big deal, you know.
He's kind of a big
something
deal.
Of a
I don't know if you know
himself.
this. He's a big deal.
Yeah. So at Fantasy Guru, you can get our content, find it right there with the MVP all-in package. You can get it for $79.99 for the whole year. So that covers you for 12 months, gets you all the sports at fantasyguru.com with our coverage, except for football and baseball. If you want baseball, you get the MLB content available with the draft guide and more at fantasyguru.com. That's spray flowers and more right there. Or you can get the platinum, VIP, or all-in packages right now. And you can contact support at fantasyguru.com in order to get the best possible deal. Just send them a nice email. Be very kind to them, and they'll hook you up. So there you go. Now let's get into some driver discussion there, shall we? Let's go with our top price picks to watch. So right here, I basically have 3 drivers outlined up. I have Justin Allgaier, Jesse Love, and Brandon Jones. So that's my 3 to start.
I can't not go Casey Kane, man. I can't do it. Can't do it. So I'm on Justin Allgaier, and more on kind of a wing and a prayer. I'm trying to caution myself on being too in love with Jesse Love because you guys know I love Jesse Love. I'm going Sam Mayer here. I like the fact that it's a little bit unique track. I like that we haven't been here. Sam is willing to kind of throw it out there, right? I mean, even when he's had some poor finishes, he's had some good runs where people weren't expecting it with Haas there. So I'm going to go Sam Mayer. I don't mind the Jesse Love pick, but I got to tell you guys that I will have for sure, I don't care where he starts, Casey McCain will be in at least one of my lineups, no matter what.
I think that's pretty valid right there.
I'm with you. I got Allgaier as well. I think he's the equipment, the car, himself. I mean, just everything about this car right now is screaming upside. The odds are minus 475. Sam Mayer is minus 185. That's the closest to him when it comes to top 5 positions. I like top 5s more than race winners. I think they're a little bit easier to read. But Sam Mayer, I got Sam Mayer as the top price driver as well. And then Sheldon Creed. I mean, he's minus 135. So these guys are the first 3 drivers listed on DraftKings. But they're also the top 3 drivers amongst the field right now that rank best in intermediate tracks. So, within the Xfinity series. So You blend both of those together, it lines up. I think none of these three you can go wrong with, and I feel like Sheldon Creed is a nice bounce back opportunity. Great DFS play. Another guy that's maybe not necessarily a good bet to win the race by any means, but I mean, he can. We're not seeing it. So, are we ever going to get a race where he wins?
Yes. In my prediction, Mark, when it happens, he's going to rattle off multiple wins over a short time period. He really has been on the cusp way too many times. He's driven all sorts of disciplines. The trophy trucks or Robbie Gordon's Truck Series, whatever they are. Part of the other thing I love about your call on this, Mark, of those three, I bet you he's the least owned.
The least owned and probably the safest when it comes to presenting a nice floor because, like you said, Sam Mayer, I love Sam Mayer too this week, but he's aggressive.
Yes.
He's going to go after it. So,
yep.
Just know there's always a risk that you're going to get a DNF out of him too, potentially. So, it's definitely more of a tournament play than a Sheldon Creed where you can play him in a cash lineup. You can play him in a tournament because of the low ownership. He's an all-around opportunity there.
I think it's interesting you guys talk about Sam Mayer and Sheldon Creed considering their teammates.
Right.
That's interesting as well. And, hey, like you said, Rich, I mean, Creed, we haven't seen it, but maybe a new track, a change of pace is exactly what he needs to kind of get over that hump. So that's also, I think, where the mindset is here with him.
So I have one other question here for you, Mark. Do you think Sheldon Creed is going to carry more ownership or less ownership than Brandon Jones?
I think he'll have less because Brandon Jones is less in cost, right? I mean, how much is Brandon Jones? 90.
So Sheldon Creed is 10,300. Brandon Jones is only a flat 9K.
Yeah, so Brandon Jones is going to drive more ownership. I would say, so when I do projected ownership, every $1,000 is about 10% one way or the other. So, if I think Sheldon Creed is going to be 10%, Brandon Jones is $1,300 less, and Sheldon Creed is minus 135 to finish in the top 5, or Brandon Jones is minus 110. So their odds are pretty much the same when it comes to that perspective. So I'm not going to manipulate my increase of ownership based off of that at all, and only based off of starting position and price point. So Brandon Jones is up to 20% right now. And now it's going to be the difference of what's Sheldon Creed's starting position versus what's Brandon Jones. Typically, the lower starting position, the higher ownership you're going to get because people like to chase after that place differential.
Truly. I just think Mark, it's very interesting, though, because Sorry, Rich, go ahead.
No, go ahead. The two what?
So I was going to say the two drivers, when you look at their stats for this season, they are actually very close statistically, too. Brandon Jones does have one victory over Sheldon Creed, but they have the same amount of top 5s, the same amount of top 10s. Sheldon Creed has one more top 20 compared to Brandon Jones, but Brandon Jones has a slightly better average finish and has led more laps this year.
Yeah, so think about it. If Brandon Jones, though, they could have same ownership, in my opinion, if like Brandon Jones has a starting position of 5th and Sheldon Creed has like a starting position of 16th, then it's a wash and they're probably about the same ownership. But you flip them around, Sheldon Creed's all of a sudden single-digit ownership. Brandon Jones is 25%.
He's pushing 30, I bet, at that point even. That is really helpful info, Mark. That seriously, like I said, and I'm not blowing smoke. I love because I've tried to do the ownership, and I bet about 30%. Like I nail about a third of the ones I call out, and completely. I shouldn't say completely whiff. But, I mean, if I suggest a guy at 15%, he comes in under 10, to me, that's a big miss. Because anytime you get into single-digit ownership, I think that's significant, right? If you want a contrarian play, you need to find under 10%. I think, Noah Gragson was 17% this week. I don't consider that contrarian. I just consider him a little lower ownership that paid off because of the price point, right? But a 5.9, a 6.8, those are really significant because those in a tournament, if you hit on that single ownership, you significantly increase your chances of cashing.
Yeah. I just think it's you really have to. It's easy to project it. I think at the top, it's much harder once you get into the mid tier and the value drivers. And the trend that I'm noticing, because this is really the first year I've closely tried to follow and project ownership, the trend I'm noticing is for these lower tier drivers and mid tier drivers, what their history is in starting position versus finishing position. If they're consistently getting an increase from starting to finishing position, you're going to see those guys are always high owned value options. And this week is interesting because we don't have any of that data.
We don't have any of that data.
So it's really, once we get out of the top tier, it's going to be really hard to project ownership here for the middle and lower tier this week.
Oh, wow. Yeah, and that's going to be
great call
fun.
out, Mark.
Good stuff. Good stuff.
Damn, Mark, we've missed you. This is that I just get like a little excited for, man.
The problem is I don't know what to do with that necessarily. It's just like an interesting conundrum for this week is like that element to it. It makes it such an unknown. So I really feel like I have to go back to the drawing board and figure out where this is going to come from. Qualifying will tell us something, but there's going to be some guys out there that are going to be low owned that we didn't think would be low owned, in my opinion, this week.
That's fair, but I think it plays to our strengths in that I think it's going to help us find some gems that others won't be on.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying? Like in situations like this, the first thing I turn to is teams. And it's not just team success over recent history. We know JGR, we know JR, and we know these guys are going to be good. But Jordan Anderson Racing, right? They typically have better equipment than people, and they don't always qualify well. Those trucks and cars always seem to be okay at qualifying, but race a little bit better, which is kind of Jordan Anderson's style as a driver even, okay? But not only that, if let's say Austin Hill is fast and Casey Kane isn't in practice, to me, I'm hoping that's the case because I think it's going to turn people off of Kane, where I'm going to be on, I'm even more on Kane. Because Kane hasn't been in these cars. So my thinking is if I'm the team head of competition there, I'm saying, let's take some of Austin Hill's setup. Let's get it in Kane's car. Let's do some laps, make sure he's comfortable, and we'll run with it. Kane is enough of a wheelman. He'll figure out how to find the line. He'll talk to Austin Hill. So I'm almost hoping that we see some of that because just like Brad this weekend with RFK, right? We all were on RFK and Brad was having us kind of panicky. Yet come race day, should we have been shocked? Brad's the most veteran. Brad's the most experienced at saving tires, all these things. I actually used Brad in a line. Brad was one of the guys I was pushing. What scared me, to your point, Mark, I didn't like his starting spot compared to the other guys. The other guys seemed like better picking, right? They were faster in practice, yet Brad somehow qualified a little bit better. Conversely, maybe we should have been looking at that going, wait a second. Why did Brad, who was slower in practice, why did he out-qualify his teammates, right? Maybe they made an adjustment after practice that was enough of adjustment to make help, right? Again, the whole veteran versus not. So Casey Kane not being in these cars, I'm almost kind of hoping we see those lines for the top 5 drop to plus 240. We see some of those slower lines because I think it's going to scare people off of them, where at that point I want to be more in. I don't want to – see, that's frustrating to know that people are so honed in on the guys that are increasing on the place differential because like you and I have talked about, I want 2 to 3 contrarian plays. I really want to start hitting on those hitting on the chalk is not that difficult. Picking Kyle Larson to 67% is not that difficult. And like we've talked about, even if he wrecks, because all but 34% of the lineup has him, you still have a shot.
Yeah. 100%. It's a big concept that is not to be overlooked when it comes to projecting ownership. And like you said, ownership has a massive impact.
For sure.
All right. So on that note, let's try and figure out the rest of this field. Let's go to our mid-tier drivers to watch here. So I just was going to say, one of the names that actually has surprisingly raced here before is one of the names I was teasing is in this very tier, Rich. The 3 drivers that I am naming are Sammy Smith, Ryan Sieg, and Christian Eckes. One of those 3, did actually race at Rockingham before. Ryan Sieg.
I would say it's got to be Sieg because he's almost as old as Crafton.
He actually ran both of the 2 truck races here in 2012 and 2013.
Yep, that makes sense.
So he
That makes a lot
has
of
actual
sense.
experience at this track.
Good call out. I forgot about that. I forgot that he had been here. That is a big deal, to be honest, Sean, especially since Sieg has been running so well as a general rule everywhere.
Exactly. He's been usually one of those drivers that you catch around the top 15 on a regular basis and sometimes sneaks into the top 10. And as for my other 2 drivers, well, Sammy Smith, we know he's been pretty solid all throughout the season, regardless of track type. And he's in JRM equipment, which that you can say is probably the best Chevy team out there as far as speed is concerned. And then I have Christian Eckes rounding it out right here. Now, I'm just going to say this too, that I think Christian Eckes is going to be one of the more underrated, underappreciated picks for a race like this. He's in solid equipment with Kaulig Racing, and he's finally starting to put together some more solid finishes inside the top 10. And one of those top 10s was at Darlington. And I think if there's no direct comparison towards this track, but I do think, though, that if you wanted to try and grasp at straws to find something as close as possible out of all the races we ran this year, I think Darlington might be arguably the closest. So from that, I think that's something I'm taking away from there.
Rock used to be known for tearing up tires too, so I can see that. I'm changing my guy on the fly here, Sean. So I had Eckes or Taylor Gray, and the thinking was Taylor Gray and JGR equipment. I'm right with you on Eckes, but I tell you what, I'm pivoting. I'm going to throw Ryan Sieg in there because I did not realize he ran here before, and that matters to me. And I'm with you on Sammy Smith. And I can't quit this kid, especially on these intermediate and shorter tracks. I'm thoroughly impressed with Carson Guapel. So while it's kind of a wild card and out there, I'm with Sean. JRM equipment. Justin Allgaier is going to have some experience. Give me Carson Guapel.
Like it.
Yeah, I like that Guapel call as well. I got Ryan Sieg. Ryan Sieg is plus 200 to get a top 5 here. So at $8,200, that's actually pretty good return. Nick Sanchez and Christian Eckes. So I will say Sammy Smith takes priority over both of these guys, but I wanted to give out 2 other names that I think are going to be solid shots from a tournament perspective. I think it's interesting that we're landing on Christian Eckes pretty frequently here. And he's plus 550 to get a top 5. Those odds would go up dramatically if he has a nice round of qualifying. So I think that's a great top 5 bet, in my opinion, if he can qualify well. And then Nick Sanchez. So he's one that we're kind of going up against recency bias, where a lot of people are going to be off on him. And it seems like a track that he could run well at, in addition to the fact that he's plus 350 to get a top 5. So he's even better, significantly better odds than Christian Eckes, and very comparable to guys like Taylor Gray and Ryan Sieg, but the lowest price point of that bunch. So that's where I'm at with that group. I think it really is going to come down to starting position, though, once we have qualifying.
100%.
So
agreed.
I love the Nick Sanchez call. You guys know I'm kind of a fan of Nick Sanchez, right? And I just realized something as you brought him up. Nick Sanchez may have run at Rockingham.
You mean in like the ARCA series?
Because I forgot ARCA ran at Rockingham. And Sanchez recently was in ARCA just 3 years ago. So
that would help some of these other drivers in Xfinity too. Like you could think of somebody like Sammy Smith who did so a few years ago. Yep. That helps with that. Taylor Gray.
Taylor Gray comes to mind. Ryan Sieg comes to mind because he's been known to run some ARCA.
Jesse Love.
Jesse Love's another one. So I will do some digging tonight and see if I can find it, because I don't remember when ARCA got added and off of ARCA's schedule. It may not have been on the schedule 3 years ago. May have just been this year, last year. I will do some digging, but you really got my juices flowing there, Mark, because I really do like Nick Sanchez. I think it's an excellent call for the type of racer and this type of track that we're at. I think that's an excellent call. I also feel like they finally got his pricing where it needs to be. So I will look into that and let you all know. It'll be part of the article tomorrow because there's not a lot of data. So I'm going to have to find some data for us. So if I can find us some ARCA data, which in all fairness, the ARCA cars are closer to the Xfinity cars than the Cup cars are to the Xfinity cars. So if there's some race experience in ARCA with Love, Sammy Smith, any of these guys, I do think it's going to be transferable.
And that might be, again, that because I'm trying to pull this a lot from odds versus price points on DraftKings and the disparity between the two. That might be why. That might be why the odds are so much better on some of these guys than some of these price points would indicate. So I wouldn't be surprised if all of those names have some sort of history.
So I'll dig. I'll find out.
In the meantime, let's dig into some sleepers and value plays right here. So on my list, I've got Jeb Burton, Brennan Poole, and Ryan Ellis there. Ryan Ellis is specifically my cheap under 6K play. Like if you need a driver from that tier, that's the guy I have my eye on. Brennan Poole, no matter what type of track it is, he has an ability to kind of outperform his equipment and really just push into the top 20 and sometimes top 15. He's done that no matter what type of track it's been, and that Alpha Prime Racing equipment he makes it look better than it actually does sometimes. And I think the price point is still very friendly in order to roster him. And then there's Jeb Burton, who's under 7K. And in my opinion, he really should be above 7K because you know what? I'm also going to say this too, but he's another driver that actually has Rockingham experience. He does. He ran both of the truck races here. That's big.
Oh my. So I dropped the ball, guys. Did you know there's a race tomorrow?
Oh, yeah, that's right. ARCA Menard Series.
The Rockingham ARCA 125 runs tomorrow night.
As of us recording it runs tomorrow night. So same day as the trucks.
Yes.
Who's racing?
Oh no,
that?
I'm sorry,
That's
I'm
racing
bad.
in trucks.
No, I'm bad. The truck race is Friday. ARCA race is Saturday.
Well, that might matter for just the Xfinity race then.
Yep, because there's practice and qualifying before Xfinity qualifying on Saturday. And then Xfinity race is Saturday afternoon.
That's right. It's after the ARCA race.
Yep. So that's going to be interesting for odds because qualifying is still practice. It's going to be interesting to see what they do for the Xfinity odds because practice is Friday, but qualifying is Saturday. Then the ARCA series runs, and I'm still trying to see when ARCA was last there. I haven't found it yet, but I will. But what that means is we need to potentially do some digging on what drivers are going to be doing some double duty with ARCA. Like I do expect the Sammy Smith, Jesse Loves, one or two of them are likely to run something like that. Although with it being right before the Xfinity series, maybe a truck guy will do it. Did you?
I just found the entry list for the ARCA race right there. So I'm scouring through it for names. There is not many, surprisingly, but there are a few that I think we should.
I'm guessing mostly truck guys would be my guess because I can't imagine too many Xfinity guys want to hop out of the ARCA race and go right into the Xfinity race.
Well, we have William Sawalich actually pulling double duty in this case.
Wow. Well, that makes sense. I could see that.
And Austin Green.
Okay.
William Sawalich is plus 1,100 to get in the top 5, where Jeb Burton is plus 2,200, and they're really not that different in price. I think Sawalich is 7,400 and Burton's 68. Another guy that sticks out to me is Sawalich. Another guy that sticks out to me is Dean Thompson. He's got similar odds to win the race, but significantly better odds than some of these guys to hit in the top 5, plus 1,500 versus plus 22. Some sort of disparity there. I'm not sure where DraftKings is getting that. Maybe that's an indicator he's got some lower series success as well.
Interesting. Well, here's my bargain, guys. Give me some Daniel Dye. I'm also on Jeb Burton and Brennan Poole. Where am I on Daniel Dye? he tends to run well at these types of tracks, and he's had a couple of nice finishes the last 2 weeks. So that's where my angle is on Mr. Daniel Dye.
I almost considered him too.
Yeah, Daniel Dye is up there. He's right up there with Jeb Burton. As far as value goes, in my opinion, I've got Burton as well. I listed Poole here. I think Poole's been looking pretty nice. And then Jeremy Clements and Poole have significantly better odds than a lot of these other lower price guys, and better odds than guys like Anthony Alfredo, Di Benedetto, Josh Williams, or same odds as some of those drivers as well, but you're saving a little bit on price point too. So again, at this point though, it all depends on starting position, place differential, in my opinion. So I think we have to wait to really lock in on what this lower tier is gonna be.
And can I make a suggestion, Mark? I welcome your opinion. I think you've done enough of this that your intuition and, I don't want necessarily to say gut feeling, but your views on all this, I think we're at the point where you can start trusting yourself a little bit more than trusting yourself sometimes when you want to do something that maybe doesn't match with the data. I want to remind everybody this is racing. Random things happen, okay? Yeah. And sometimes when you're just not feeling it, it's okay. And it's okay to be wrong. But if you're just not feeling it, drops the cylinder, bad pit stop, things have been going so well for so long, it's kind of time maybe things are turning around, vice versa. Things are kind of trending right, just haven't popped. I think you're at that point, Mark, where I welcome your gut feelings, if you will.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. I think it's all about the narratives too, in my opinion. It's
agreed.
What picture can you paint with this driver going into this weekend?
Story,
because they're probably thinking the same thing.
Betting stories in NASCAR works. It really does. Yeah. I don't disagree with that. And that,
look at Larson last weekend.
True. Well, let's send it. Do we got any bets? Because that's all. Wait, Mark, did you go? Yeah, you did your values, didn't you? You just went through them.
Yes.
Yeah, he just went through them.
So, well, we're at that point, Sean. So let's finish it out here. Why don't you lead the way here, bud?
We'll get all right. Let's take care of our DFS core fours here. So I got Allgaier at 11,500, Ryan Sieg at 8,200, Christian Eckes at 7,600, and then Jeb Burton with that truck experience, mind you, at 6,800. So that's my four right there.
Give me Allgaier, give me Sammy Smith, give me Carson Guapo. I know I'm on JRM a little too heavy, but that's where I'm at. And I also like the Jeb Burton call. That's where I'm headed.
And
optimal build for me is going to be Allgaier 11.5, Ryan Sieg 8,200, Jeb Burton 6,800, Jeremy Clements 6,300. I have to throw out there, I think you got to get someone close to 6K in your lineup.
Truly
valid.
Betting core fours. So these are for the winners here. I got Justin Allgaier at plus 220, Sam Mayer at plus 500, Jesse Love at plus 700, Brandon Jones at plus 800, and a long shot call of Christian Eckes, who's at plus 5,000, 50-1 to win.
I love that long shot call at 50-1. Love it. I think that line is way off for a long shot. I tell you what, I didn't look it up. What's Casey Kane at? Do you guys know off the top of your head?
Letting the page reload. Yeah, 750.
Okay. So give me Allgaier. I don't really like the 220, but I do think there's a reason he's the favorite. I also like Sam Merritt plus 500. I do like Sheldon Creed as well. I do think he's due, like Mark said. Maybe this is what kind of turns the page. I don't know that I want to chase Casey Kane at 750, but I tell you what, I'm going to be telling the wife to put a bet in on Casey Kane.
What about Casey Kane at plus 1,000, Rich?
At plus 1,000, I'd be all over it.
That's how much he is. That's how much he is on ESPN Bet to win.
Really? 10-1.
10-1 odds.
I'd take 10-1. I mean, I would put the farm on it.
And I bring up ESPN Bet because that's where the source of all my other bets that I'm putting in for this week comes from, because they actually have more lines than just the winners and the top threes and top fives a little bit. So here we go. for my other bets, I got Brandon Jones for a top 5. This is from ESPN Bet. He's at plus 120 to finish top 5. Christian Eckes, top 10, plus 130. Then I got 2 head-to-head bets right here. Christian Eckes versus Nick Sanchez. I'm taking Eckes in order to win the matchup because, believe it or not, and I've done the digging for this, Eckes has beaten Nick Sanchez in almost every single race this year in position, and the only ones that he did were the ones where Eckes had a problem.
I was going to say, I'm not shocked by that because Sanchez has run fast, but not well. Does that make sense? Like, he just not had the finishes to match the speed. I think that's a smart bet right there. I really like that bet.
And then I have one other head-to-head right there. Sam Mayer versus Sheldon Creed, teammates right there. I think it's going to be Sam Mayer winning that matchup right there. He's at minus 130. Mayer has actually beaten Creed in more races in position this year. So I do think that even though I think it's going to be a little more competitive compared to the Eckes and Sanchez one, I think that Mayer is going to be the better finishing Haas driver right there. Now you can parlay both of those head-to-head matchups bets, and it becomes odds of plus 238 right there at ESPN.
I like that
Bet.
call. I like that call. I will take I'll second the Eckes Sanchez bet. I think that's really savvy. At plus 1,000, I'm good taking a long shot dart on Casey Kane.
And I also bring up ESPN Bet because I know one of our subscribers over in the Discord has been really asking us about ESPN Bet. So this one's for you, Buzzy.
I had a hard time looking them up, so I need to get that figured out. And Mark is over there scouring prize picks for us.
Yeah, I've been finding some good stuff on Prize Picks and Underdog recently, so they won't have anything posted until tip after qualifying. So we'll see. Probably won't get anything for trucks, but most likely for Xfinity. And then my betting winners, I got All Guy 220. I threw Austin Hill in 750. Feels like he might be overlooked, especially with a lot of guys in not only his price range, but betting range. Ryan Sieg at plus 1,800. I think that's great. And then Sam Mayer at plus 500.
I like it.
Love it. Well, I think that's a wrap for us. On behalf of Elite Plus Network and FantasyGuru.com, please head over to FantasyGuru.com, click the subscribe button, check out and see if there's a package for you. There's one that looks like it's close, but not quite what you're looking for. Hey, hit us at support@FantasyGuru.com. Tell us what you're looking for. Tell us the price point you need to be in and what you're looking to bet. We do have some specials going on. If you like our content, hey, we're partial to the $79.99, $80 for the whole year. Get you everything that's not football or baseball, but that includes DFS, that includes betting, and that's hockey with all the guys over there. That Fancy, by the way, went like on a 3-day hot streak where I think he only lost one bet in 3 days or something like that. Or almost maybe it was a 3-day clean sweep. So hat tip to him. Ray's been hitting stuff over there for baseball. I know Jorge Pucks has always got stuff. Rob's got a great chart out for baseball, so be sure to check that out. But we've got something for everybody. Gentlemen, any final thoughts, or should we take her home?
I think it's time for us in order to go out and see if we can rock the rock.
Oh, I like it. It's time to rock the rock. On behalf of us all here, this has been the Race Guru Thunder Hour. Please find Sean on X at SeanE247 and Mark at DFS_Marlin. Don't come find me on Twitter. It's not worth your time. Till next time. Peace.
Yeah.